Humans are ludicrously predictable, endlessly eager to divulge their deepest anxieties and most carefully guarded secrets, often without coercion, merely a subtle nudge. A truth so starkly ironic, it's almost comedic. If understanding this peculiar human algorithm fascinates you, consider subscribing. It's a small secret to unlock a vast library of hidden knowledge. The paradox lies not in sophisticated torture nor in truth serums, but in a sequence of three deceptively simple questions, a rhetorical precision tool honed over centuries that cuts through the layers of defensive posturing and psychological barriers we all erect. How can such a minimalist approach yield such profoundly intimate revelations?
The answer isn't about the questions themselves, but about the intricate psychological architecture they dismantle, brick by brick, exposing the vulnerable core of human self-perception and our inherent, often self-sabotaging need for validation and coherence. This isn't merely about interrogation. It's about a fundamental understanding of conversational dynamics, the subtle currents of trust and disclosure that govern our interactions, whether in a high-stakes intelligence debriefing or a casual encounter at a coffee shop. The simplicity is a camouflage, a strategic misdirection that disarms the target, encouraging an almost voluntary surrender of information, all under the comfortable illusion of benign curiosity. The real mystery isn't what these questions are, but why we are so utterly susceptible to their understated power, consistently failing to recognize the subtle psychological traps hidden within their benign phrasing. We are wired to respond, to elaborate, to justify, and in that elaborate justification, we inadvertently lay bare the very truths we intended to conceal. This mechanism exploits a foundational human drive, the desire to be understood, combined with a cognitive blind spot for the slow, insidious erosion of our own informational security. The lineage of these subtle elicitation techniques stretches back further than any modern psychology textbook, rooted deep in the practices of ancient philosophers, spiritual confessors, and eventually the calculating minds of espionage agencies. Consider the Socratic method, ostensibly a path to truth through inquiry, yet equally effective in exposing contradictions and extracting admissions through a relentless, yet outwardly benign series of questions. Fast forward to the medieval confessional booth, a paradigm of voluntary disclosure predicated on a spiritual imperative, yet structurally engineered to leverage guilt and the desire for absolution into a detailed accounting of transgressions. The priest didn't issue commands. He offered absolution in exchange for narrative detail, guiding the penitent with pointed, often seemingly sympathetic queries designed to fill in the blanks. Then came the Cold War, a crucible for the refinement of psychological warfare, where intelligence agencies meticulously cataloged every nuance of human interaction, dissecting conversational patterns for their potential to extract actionable intelligence. Their focus shifted from overt force to covert psychological manipulation, recognizing that a person who believes they are willingly sharing information is a far more reliable source than one coerced. They studied the art of rapport building, the power of active listening, and the delicate dance of empathy, all as preambles to extracting critical data. The key insight was that humans rarely offer secrets in a vacuum. They offer them within a constructed narrative, a context of perceived safety or mutual understanding. The truly potent methods don't break a person's will, they align with it, co-opting their natural inclination to explain, to rationalize, to connect. It's an exercise in social engineering, creating a conversational environment where revealing, rather than concealing, becomes the path of least psychological resistance, a subtle redirect that often bypasses conscious defenses entirely. The history of this subtle craft demonstrates a consistent pattern. The most effective strategies are those that appear least strategic. The first two questions in this potent sequence operate as the meticulous groundwork, not for extraction, but for construction, the construction of a temporary, fragile bridge of trust. The first, deceptively simple, often involves an open-ended inquiry about the individual's interests, passions, or a recent significant event in their life. It's typically phrased along the lines of, "What's truly been occupying your thoughts lately?" Or, "What's one thing you're particularly excited, frustrated about right now?" The brilliance here isn't the content of the question, but its intent, to signal genuine, non-judgmental interest,
to invite the other person to narrate their own story on their own terms.
This isn't small talk. It's a deliberate psychological invitation to self-expression, tapping into the universal human need to be heard and understood. The elicitor employs active listening, head nods, empathetic vocalizations, mirroring body language, all nonverbal cues affirming the speaker's value. The second question builds on this foundation, subtly deepening the rapport by asking for clarification or elaboration on an emotionally resonant detail from their initial response. Perhaps, could you tell me a bit more about that particular aspect? I find it fascinating how you described X. This isn't probing, it's validating.
It communicates, I heard you, I processed what you said, and I value your perspective enough to want more detail. This seemingly innocuous follow-up isn't about gathering data yet. It's about nurturing the speaker's sense of self-importance and psychological safety within the conversation. It reinforces the idea that they are in control of the narrative, giving them a perceived sense of agency and lowering their subconscious guard. The target, feeling valued and listened to, begins to perceive the elicitor as a confidant, a safe harbor for their thoughts, unwittingly paving the way for deeper disclosures without even realizing the conversational trajectory has been subtly rerouted.
These initial questions are not about gathering facts. They are about cultivating an emotional connection, however superficial or fleeting, that makes the subsequent step feel like a natural, almost inevitable progression in your voice. With the carefully constructed illusion of rapport firmly in place, the third question makes its surgical strike, not as an interrogation, but as an almost compassionate invitation to clarity. This question often targets a minor inconsistency, a vague generalization, or a seemingly insignificant omission from the narrative the subject has already provided, but it's phrased as if the elicitor is genuinely trying to understand rather than expose. Imagine the subject has described a challenging project at work, omitting specific details about a colleague's involvement. The third question might be, you mentioned the team faced some hurdles with X, and you personally overcame Y. But I'm curious, who exactly was responsible for the initial architectural design that led to those early challenges? Or if the subject speaks vaguely about a personal struggle, it sounds like you went through a really tough time, and it's incredible you powered through it. But just for my own understanding, what was the single biggest catalyst for the situation you found yourself in? Was it more external pressure or an internal decision? The power lies in its framing. It's not an accusation, but a request for a missing piece to complete the elicitor's understanding, subtly implying that the answer will help the elicitor to better empathize. This question leverages the human desire for cognitive closure and consistency, and the deeply ingrained impulse to justify one's actions or narrative to a perceived ally. Since the subject has already invested in the narrative, and the elicitor has affirmed their value, denying the final piece of information feels disingenuous, or worse, like breaking the newly formed bond. The subject feels compelled to provide the missing detail, to clarify or explain, thus revealing the very secret they had subconsciously or consciously tried to obscure. The secret is rarely forced out. It's voluntarily offered as a final brushstroke on a canvas they believe they're painting for an appreciative audience. The domino effect is devastatingly effective because the subject doesn't realize they are being guided. They feel they are leading the interaction. The profound irony of these three questions lies in their utter banality when viewed in isolation, yet their devastating efficacy when deployed in sequence. It's a testament to the enduring power of understanding human psychology over brute force or intricate stratagems. The secrets are not wrenched away. They are generously provided, almost as an offering, once the recipient feels sufficiently seen, heard, and validated. This isn't simply about extracting information. It's about tapping into the fundamental human need for connection, for narrative coherence, and for being understood, leveraging these deep-seated drives to lower defenses and open floodgates of disclosure. These techniques, whether used in intelligence gathering, therapeutic settings, or even sales, underscore a dark truth. Our inherent social wiring, our desire for rapport, makes us astonishingly vulnerable to those who know how to ask the right questions in the right order. The three questions, in essence, are an open-ended invitation to self-expression,
a validating request for deeper elaboration, and a subtly targeted probe designed to fill a perceived gap in understanding. They don't demand, they invite. They don't accuse, they seek clarity. The payoff is a chilling realization. The most potent tools for unearthing secrets are often the least discernible, camouflaged in the everyday civilities of human interaction.
Learning to recognize this pattern, therefore, becomes a form of psychological self-defense, an empowering insight that transforms you from a potential target into an astute observer. It's a reminder that while vulnerability can be exploited, understanding its mechanics also grants you the power to cultivate genuine connection and discern manipulative intent. The secret, after all, isn't just about revealing, it's about perceiving.